How fast did you get to 1 million from the time that you turned things on?
I think it was like 7 months.
What does it take to go from 10 to 100, you think?
Scale. Then you need a really good team. You need people making really good decisions. You need to move to enterprise. It's a very different type of company. It's all about the leadership team then. You can't, as like the founders, just like will your way to get to there. And we really did. Like we really willed our way to get to 10 million. We lost a really big deal to a competitor that had copied us. And it was a big logo and it really hurt us. That was very, very painful for us. We got them back. They're a customer now. So yeah, like don't fuck with Shensi. Like we get them back. Yeah. Okay. This is a controversial take, but I'll say it.
That's product market fit.
Product market fit.
Product market fit.
I called it the product market fit question.
Product market fit.
Product market fit.
Product market fit.
Product market fit.
I mean, the name of the show is Product Market Fit.
Do you think the Product Market Fit show has product market fit? Because if you do, then there's something you just have to do. You have to take out your phone. You have to leave the show 5 stars. It lets us reach more founders and it lets us get better guests. Thank you.
Well, Shensi, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited to have you. I've heard about your company several times.
Oh, really?
Well, it's one of those several like problems that, is pretty classic, right? Like integrations, like who's building software today that doesn't need to integrate with something else?
I'm biased and I totally agree. But I still always get a little bit of a shock whenever anyone's heard of us.
Yeah. So I'm curious to actually hear how it all started and why. So you've raised what, $75 million to date? Is that right?
Yes, exactly 74.5, but
Who's counting the, yeah. So, okay, 75 million. And you started in like 2019, 2020?
I started 2020.
It was a pretty crazy time to start something.
It was. A lot of things have changed since then. And I feel like we've gone through multiple challenges like throughout. Like it's like year 1, COVID, year 2, tons of fundraising and like lots of money. And then year 3, like everyone's dying. And then it just goes on and on and on. So, but yeah, it's been really exciting, like seeing how the company and the team has been able to adjust to all the different things that have changed. It's also been really great just being able to launch great new products and also being able to see a lot of our customers succeed in this current time too.
It's so funny how that happens. Like there's just so many things that have to go your way for a startup to work. And like the last thing you imagine, like I've got a company in my portfolio that's doing really well, but they're in the car space. And when they started, it was like, supply chains and you just couldn't get cars. And then it was like the interest rate. And then it was, the Trump stuff with the trade war. And it's just like, none of these are the things that I would have said are going to be the reasons why we're going to have challenges like in year 3. You know what I mean? Like it's just insane.
I know. It is really insane. But yeah, I think now we've been increasingly more just accepting that everything is just going to be changing a lot faster. It's no longer the same way. It's not the same way of company building that it used to be in like the 2010s. Things are just changing much faster and much more drastically. So we just have to be able to adjust.
I'm curious to hear, like, what's your background? Like, what are you doing before 2019 that leads into the startup?
So my background is in software engineering. I started coding when I was in middle school. I was a huge loser and nerd. And so I was just coding in my dark bedroom in the suburbs of Boston. I went to college studying computer science, and that's where I met Gil, my co-founder and best friend.
What do you build, by the way, like in middle school? You building games? Is that?
Oh my God, the lamest things, like random websites, like over and over and over again with like slightly different designs.
Were you the ones that at least you got paid for this, or was just like your own thing?
I never got good enough to do that. So I wasn't able to generate any income, but I did make a lot of great fan websites for all my favorite bands.
There you go.
Yeah, and I was able to make like different like headers and like website templates that I was like really excited by, but now in retrospect, were actually very ugly. But it still taught me a lot about coding. And at my high school, actually, we were very lucky. We had a computer science class. I was able to learn a lot there too. But it was more oriented towards like game design, but it was still really fun to do. And we had a really great teacher. So yeah, I just really loved coding. So went to college, studied coding. I met Gil, my best friend there, and my co-founder now. And we ended up going our separate ways. He went straight to San Francisco. I stayed in New York and actually ended up moving into finance. Back then in 2015, tech was not the same way it is now. It wasn't as prominent in New York City. A lot of people who were studying engineering at Columbia were very focused on moving into finance. And my whole orientation was around like, okay, I grew up coding. My mom's a software engineer. I want to do something a little bit different. And I also didn't feel like I was the best software engineer ever. And if that was going to be the case, then I would probably need to find some other niche that I would be able to be uniquely good at. Another thing that also really bothered me was that I always felt like because I didn't understand the business side, people could talk down to me. People would always be able to be like, oh, well, you don't understand like business models. You don't understand like financial statements. And because of that, you just don't get it. And I really wanted to fill in as many gaps as possible just so that I would be able to talk smartly about things. And so did investment banking, really wanted to learn like the fundamentals of business and had a great experience there.
But you'd say it was more because obviously, like usually I would say when you're in New York and you go to finance, especially like investment banking, it's basically the money that like is probably the number one. But do you think for you it was like the learning that was the number one motivator?
Yeah, I mean, I had confidence in myself. I felt like if I was going to be really successful, the money thing would work out one day. I just had to really make sure that I was able to get the skill sets to become successful. And yeah, I really knew nothing about business. And it was really hard to get that job because I had a CS degree, which is really interesting. But back then, it really hurt me. People didn't feel like I would be able to have the skill set to be a good banker.
Interesting. And so how long did you work in that IB for?
I was there for 2 years, and then I moved to Silver Lake's growth equity fund in San Francisco. So that was more tech focused. It allowed me to move to San Francisco, where I would be able to just be around more people in tech. I thought it would be a good way for me to move back towards tech and just see if like I would want to move towards operating. And it was. I was able to see a lot of great pitches. I met a lot of founders. I also made a lot of friends in San Francisco and really became immersed in the industry. And it made me realize like, I don't think finance was the right way for me. I really wanted to move into operating. And with the people that I'd met in college and also in San Francisco, I was able to get a really great job at Expanse as chief of staff to the CEO. It got me my idea for merch.
Sorry, which company was this?
Called Expanse. Back then it was called Cadium. We actually rebranded to Expanse while I was there. But we were acquired by Palo Alto Networks for around $1 billion in 2020.
Okay, what did the company do?
So they did attack surface reduction. So they were able to scan the internet, look for any potential risks, like risky IP addresses on the internet, and help agencies and also Fortune 500 companies find any potential vulnerabilities. And yeah, it was really, really cool. I learned a lot about both like politics and tech, and the CEO was super smart. I worked with him directly and got to learn a lot from him there.
What was your role in that company?
I was chief of staff.
And do you go directly from that to starting Merge?
I did, yes.
Walk me through the origin story and then I guess repartnering with Gil. Like, how does this idea come about?
So I'm at Expanse, I'm working, and one thing that just keeps coming up is integrations. We were reaching a point where we didn't have any integrations, and we were starting to hear it a lot from our sales team. Some of our sales team members were really becoming frustrated because we were losing deals to our competitors just purely based on integrations. Even though we had a better product, we were still losing these deals and it didn't really feel fair. And so we wanted to try to figure out how we could bridge the gap as quickly as possible. We tried building an API so that people could build their integration between us and whatever ticketing service that they used on their own. That didn't really help. And then we tried using CSV upload and download and trying to make that as flexible as possible. That also didn't really help. And then we hired a contractor to build our integrations for us, and it was just really horrible code. So we ended up just tossing it away and it didn't really go anywhere. So then finally, we ended up hiring a lot of engineers purely to focus on integrations, and it took them 6 months to build a single integration. So overall, a really frustrating experience, but I was sitting in the executive settings and I could see how it was really impacting us from a P&L perspective. It was hurting us both on a revenue point of view and then also from a R&D expense point of view, and no one was really solving this problem properly. So I was getting dinner with Gil. We would just talk about work, and at the time, he had just moved into a head of engineering role at a recruiting tech company called Jumpstart, which had been backed by Sequoia. And one thing that he was saying was a big issue at his company was integrations as well. But because he was in the engineering team, he was noticing that it was becoming a really big pain point for their team from like a work point of view. It was really hard to get access. They ended up having a lot of bugs. And customer success was always asking them for answers to questions, and they would always have to continue getting off of their current work and in order to help provide that support for customers. So seeing it from those two different angles and us just talking about work, we started thinking there might be something there, but we weren't quite sure what the solution was.
I guess just to summarize, maybe like, I mean, on the go-to-market side, it's obvious. Like, I mean, if you don't have the integration that the customer wants and somebody else does, you're losing that deal. And then on the product side, if I'm understanding, it's not just developing, but it's the maintenance of the integrations. It's the support, it's the bugs, it's the fact that if something changes on their side, you've got to like somehow support that change on your side. And so it's just like, and then they just stack because like you start with 1 or 2, it's manageable, then you got 20 and it's complete chaos.
Absolutely. Yes.
And so you're seeing this problem from both sides. What do you do next? Like, how do you go from there to kind of quitting and going all in on this idea?
So it definitely wasn't immediate, and that's something that I really don't recommend doing. I don't recommend just being like, okay, I kind of think I have an idea and I'm just going to quit. We did a lot of research. I was doing a ton of reading on like what companies were out there, what were the existing options, what we felt like they weren't solving. We also booked a lot of meetings with different companies.
Were there competitors like this like integration as a service companies already?
So there were some companies like Zapier, Workato,
Right.
Trade that were doing like workflow building. So what would happen is you would buy product A and you would buy product B, and then you'd also buy Trade or Workato and connect the two. But that wasn't ideal based on what we had known at our own companies. And there wasn't anyone just connecting the bridge between company A and B. And so what we wanted to do was just help that direct connection versus requiring a purchase of a third company every single time someone wanted to use both tools. So we did see a few companies that were kind of doing it, but not really. They were pretty small or pretty focused or doing some kind of embedded workflow like hybrid that wasn't really great either. It would still require the customer to do a lot of the work. It wasn't going to be permanently scalable. And it would also just run into a lot of edge cases and wouldn't really handle the long-term maintenance. And so Gil and I, we just talk to a lot of people who are using those products as well, trying to understand like what is still the gap, like what are still the issues, why is this not working for you?
Did you like get demos of those products yourself as well? Like how deep did you go in trying to understand those products?
So I don't really believe in doing that. I actually think it's unethical, but there's a lot of things online. And if you're a really good stalker, which I am, you can find anything. You can really find everything is on YouTube. Everything is on a podcast. You can hear everything that is available out there. And if you aren't, then you're not doing a good enough job. So I don't believe in doing that. And I've actually had other companies do that to us as well. But you should just do your research on your own and you can get pretty far. If someone does have a self-serve sign up, that's different. But taking a demo just for the purpose of snooping, I think is a little weird. I mean, of course it's business, but we just didn't do that.
Got it. And so you did what you did, plus you spoke with their customers to kind of get a sense of what the limitations were from their perspective.
Exactly.
And that led you to, I mean, that kind of crystallizes your belief that this is like not solved.
Exactly. We tried to go through a few different ideas. Some of them were not great. Some of them were just like slightly better options of what was already out there. And it wasn't worth quitting for that. And then finally we decided, okay, I think a normalized data model, one API that you integrate with once and you're able to just read and write data back in the same exact format, that actually fixes the problem. It's not like an O of N solution, it's an O of 1 solution. It actually is multitudes better than what is out there. It's a huge pain, very difficult to do, but if it's done well, then it actually can be a lot better. And also difficulty, and the more painful it is, it's actually a moat. So we started using that idea, then talking to people and trying to see like, okay, it's actually better than what you currently have.
And so the pitch is like just integrate with Merge, and then we have all the integrations kind of, you get them all for free.
Exactly. In a category.
When you have that idea, you go out and you, like, how many of these conversations are you having, and what are you looking for besides, because, you know, there's the blanket, like, yeah, that's great. Like, that sounds cool. You don't really know. Like, does that mean you're going to switch? Does that mean you're actually going to buy? Like, how far are you taking it?
We had 100 conversations. So I would cold message random people. I would look for people in product, design, customer success, founders. I would really reach out to anyone I could, trying to literally anyone that had an integrations page and see if they would be able to give us feedback. So the way to get whether or not it's real or not is you ask, like, how much would you be willing to pay? Would you actually be willing to switch off of what you're currently doing? How much better is this than what you're currently doing? And if there's anything that you think could be better, like, what would it be? But like, we're about to launch our second product and we're going through the same exact motions. To be honest, like, I don't think that many people are like, oh yeah, this is great. Like, we're going to use it. Like, most people are like, oh, this is good or this is not. If there's totally unengaged, that means it's not a good fit. And that means that you are not solving the problem that they have. And then you should find out, what is the problem? Like, why am I not solving that? What is the gap between like what you need and what I am providing? But I mean, you should be building what the customer wants, and figuring out what that gap is super, super helpful. So if they're not engaged, it's actually more helpful for you than if they're just like, oh yeah, I'm super excited, I'm going to use this.
What did you hear through those 100 conversations that gave you conviction? Was it like extreme, like, yes, this is exactly what I want? Was it someone more nuanced?
It was extreme annoyance at the current way of how they were doing things, and how if this worked, it would be much, much, much better. There was a lot of doubt for whether or not we can make it work. And more of the feedback was that there was doubt that we could make it work versus that this would be much better.
Just on the technical front, like really a lot of risk on that side?
Yeah, that it was just going to be hard and it was going to be very painful. And it is. It really is. Like,
They were right.
They were right. But again, like, if that was really what the doubt was, then that means that it could be much better.
So is that then the moment when you kind of jump in with both feet?
Yes. I think when we started getting really excited about the problem and the fact that we could be the right people to solve it, I gave notice. I gave 6 months notice, and I told Gil, hey, I quit.
6 months.
Yeah. Well, I was chief of staff and I was really close to my founder. And I wanted to make sure I was doing right by the business. So I gave 6 months notice, and I told Gil, I was like, hey, I quit. And he was like, I don't know if I can quit because I'm head of engineering. And then when it started getting towards the date, he was like, okay, I need to just like jump in and do this. So I was like, I agree. And then we did it, and we just like hunkered down. It was June 2020. So peak COVID.
Did you second guess it? Because I guess you would have given notice like Jan 2020, and then COVID happens. Do you like rethink your strategy?
I actually didn't. I'm honestly pretty delusional, so I actually didn't. Yeah, I think if I had been less delusional, then this probably wouldn't have happened. But I've always been a little delusional, so I think it's okay.
Did you factor it in, or you thought it would be better somehow, or neutral, or it wasn't even like a part of the equation?
I didn't give a fuck. I didn't care. I just didn't matter to me. I was like, we're already on this track. Like, we're going.
What were you doing during these 6 months? Like, were you moving the ball forward on merge? How did you balance that?
We continued booking more meetings. I felt like there's no limit to how many meetings we could book. I also wanted to make sure that I was able to get back into coding for the team because I hadn't been coding for 5 years. And I knew that we could move way faster if both of us were coding. So I was rereading, I was trying to get familiar with it. I was like playing around with VS Code, just trying to get back into it. It wasn't going to be the same as like actually doing it, but I wanted to be able to contribute.
And you're doing meetings like discovery calls or like trying to pre-sell? Like, what are you trying to get in these meetings at that point?
Both.
You did like 100 or so. And then in that 6 month period, how many more did you do? And like, what'd you get out of it?
Oh, I mean, it also includes those 6 months too. But we started tapering off a little bit more because then it became more of like, okay, now we know what we're building. We need to do more research. Yeah. So it was mostly just like, okay, now we have the idea. This is how we're going to execute on it. Like, what do you think? Like, you ended up building something similar in-house probably. So what are things that you learned from this? Like, what can we take from you? We also started having a little bit more conversations with like former founders to get advice on this as well. We started being able to be ready. Like, okay, what do we need to know for like the first year? Like, what is fundraising for the seed? Like, how do we end up prepping for this? Like company formation, we started trying to figure out who our lawyer would be. So it was those things where we started prepping, but we were working a lot at our previous jobs. And so we didn't have a ton of time. So we were moving the ball, but it was still slower than if we had been full-time.
When did you do your first round, your pre-seed or seed round?
I think we raised it in August.
How did you set that up? Walk me through like that process.
Yeah. So another thing that I've been doing during the 6 months from when I gave notice to when we were prepping was I was reading a lot about fundraising. There's so many materials out there. And I really wanted to make sure that because I was technically the non-technical co-founder, I needed to be responsible for prepping us for that. And I needed to be responsible for making sure that it went smoothly. So I did a ton of research on that. And we met with we also prepped all of our connections too. So I was like, okay, we're going to fundraise at this time. And once we're ready, I need your introductions when we can have that. And so we first met with people that we would feel a little bit more comfortable with, that we wouldn't be like super nervous about like the pitch. And then over time we met with more and more people. But I really view this seed as a debutante ball, and you meet with everyone that you can. So you're introducing yourself to the industry as a new founder, as a new company. So yeah, we met, we did the same pitch every single day. It's different people. We would do follow-up meetings with them and do the same pitch over and over again too. And we would get a lot of questions. And each time we would debrief on that pitch, like what went well, what didn't go well, we could have done better. And then we would do it again.
How long did you run fundraising for?
3 weeks.
And you were all in on fundraising during that time?
100%. We thought we would be able to do other stuff, but it is not possible if you're really all in.
You said you read before doing this, like you learned a lot about it and then you went out and do it. Like what were some of the things that you learned during that process, both theoretically and then practically from actually going out and raising a seed round?
It's a lot of game and marketing. And I thought I understood that, but it's so true. And it's basically a proxy for how good you are at sales. And so you need to be prepped for how you market yourself and your co-founder, how you market yourself as a team, like why you are uniquely positioned. And also you just need to be extremely confident. It is just something you have to be prepped for. And there's a lot of things that also people don't put in writing, but you hear from your friends who are in VC, like how long you take to respond to things, like how often you open their emails. Like it's little things like that where it's kind of like a dating game, and there's a lot more to it than just being like, okay, please invest in me. Like, please invest in me. Yeah. And like, there are resources that allude to that, but you just have to like hear that explicitly. Like, just don't be stupid. You need to do your research and prep. Don't just go into it thinking it's going to work out no matter what. And like, you want to meet with like 1,000 people. Like, that's just such a waste of time. Like, you really need to just like nail the fundraise, get the money, and then immediately start building again, because building is what's more important than fundraising. And fundraising is such a distraction.
We have tens of thousands of people who have followed the show. Are you one of those people? You want to be a part of the group. You want to be a part of those tens of thousands of followers. So hit the follow button.
How'd you go and get the intros, which is like often the hardest kind of part?
So I think there are several different ways to do it. Like, I think what was lucky was that I had worked in investing. So I had my old coworkers who were still in investing, and I could use them for other connections. I also had friends who were really early at certain like successful startups, and they were able to connect me to people because I was chief of staff. I also knew the investors in at Expanse too. And my old CEO was really, really helpful in making me a lot of introductions too. And that was one of the benefits of joining an early stage company. I could use his network, and he was able to help me a lot too. So So I think if I had been like an outsider, then I think joining an accelerator would have been super, super helpful. But because we already had a lot of those connections, we didn't really, really need it. There obviously are a lot of tangible benefits to doing it, but we just used our industry connections.
It's crazy though how much the gamesmanship of fundraising like really does matter, and especially earlier on. I mean, later on, there's a lot of real numbers behind it. And so like, it's just the story piece will always matter. But even if you're not good at fundraising, if you have an epic like $100 million a year business, people are going to throw money at you. But at the beginning, it's almost all like you mentioned confidence. You mentioned like all these subtle things, like when to answer really fast, when to actually not answer really fast, like how to message different pieces. Because like part of it is VCs like myself, you can't really know who's going to be huge. And so you almost have to pick up on all these cues that you assume might be correlated with, or also drive FOMO, like in momentum. All these things kind of come together. And usually that's what drives like a short fundraising process that also gets you the amount of money in terms you want.
I think it's also a good proxy for street smarts. That was something that I reflected on later on as well. Like, I think if you are able to like hustle, get those connections and try to figure out how to like position yourself in the best way, then later on when you're doing sales deals, that's way harder. I actually think like getting to be like 1 million, then 10 million, then 100 million, this is way harder to do than getting a fundraise. And so you have to be street smart to do that. If you can't execute on like your fundraise, if you need to fundraise, then it's going to be really hard to generate revenue too, because you have to be able to navigate those personal relationships.
How much did you raise in that round?
You raised $4.5 million.
Okay. And then what did you do? Like after you had it, did you hire a bunch of people? Did you like put in the bank? Like what was the strategy?
Oh my God, yeah. We really focused on hiring. We have a really big product. It's very, very technical. There's a shit ton of things to build. And Gil and I were spending all day, all night and weekends coding, but that's just, it wasn't fast enough. And in order for us to onboard our first customers, we knew we needed engineers, and we also wanted to have a beautiful product. We had to invest in design. So we spent all of our time recruiting. Every single day, we spent so much time like outbounding. I don't even remember the exact number of engineers that I outbounded, but I think it was like 50,000 or so. Like it was crazy. We spent a lot of time outbounding engineers because we just knew like no one's going to randomly apply to merge. We have to source them. We have to reach out to people. We have to try to convince them to join the company.
How much was your like internal network, especially Gail, like if he was head of engineering?
Useless. Like that's just not, some people have found it to be super helpful. We didn't end up finding it to be super helpful because there's like non-competes. And then also like the people that end up wanting to join you when you're like starting a new company, like sure, I can hire my friends, but like, do I want to? Like, you know what I mean? Like it's kind of weird. And then also we were doing it during COVID, and we knew we were going to be in person. We were going to be an in-person company from day one. And not everyone was willing to do that.
How did you guys do that?
Yes, we wore masks. And as we got bigger, COVID got better. Right. And so like we all got the vaccines like pretty early on, actually, as we started getting bigger.
What drove that? Like, I mean, a lot of people had different ideas and stuff, and a lot of people knew like, or thought it never would work, but like to be that determined that early on, like what was the thinking about not even trying out remote?
So Gil and I, we were working together. Every morning I'd bike over to Gil's apartment in San Francisco and we would code, and it was so much fun, and we were moving so fucking fast. And because we were moving so fast, I was like, there has to be special magic to working in person. And then we would do a few days where we would be working remotely, and the progress was just significantly slower. And we just wanted to be able to scale that as much as possible. And we were open to changing our minds. If it turns out that everyone is going to be remote forever and it wasn't going to be possible to continue this team culture being in person, one day we would change. But again, like as we started doing it, like it was really hard.
But even for a rockstar engineer that just happened to be somewhere else, you wouldn't do it.
I don't give a fuck. No, because you wouldn't be successful at Merge. Like it doesn't matter if you're a rockstar engineer, because you wouldn't be a rockstar engineer at Merge.
What do you think now, having done it for so long, like you talked about this magic, like what do you think happens when you're in person that makes, I would think, especially small teams, maybe it's larger teams too, work better?
You care. Like you actually give a shit. Like if you were working remote, I don't care if Joe from Alaska is like not working. Like I don't care if he doesn't answer my question for like 7 hours. But if I'm in person, I'm sitting next to Joe and I'm like, hey, why is this button green? He has to respond to me sooner. And then I also annoyed if he doesn't keep up with the company in the same way that I do. And so there's accountability. And also I'm friends with Joe. So I care about Joe being successful, and Joe cares about me being successful. And then we care about the company and the team in general. So you just care more if you're in person.
How many people did you hire in that first, 6-month period or so?
We hired 5 people. It was a pretty small team.
It was a lot of outbound, but it was like going to be a small team. It wasn't like you needed to go to 20 or something.
No, not yet. And then I think by the time we raised our Series A, we had gone to like 12 or 13 people.
When you build a normal product, like you have to have this, the MVP idea, you put something out, you have an idea, and then you go back and forth. Was that the case with this, or did you kind of know, like, if you build it, they will come sort of thing? It needs to be like, because it's a technical product, right? So I'm just curious, like, how much back and forth was there, and how much was it just like heads down, get it to this place, and then we ship?
It's probably like 70% heads down, like, let's get it to this place. We really knew what baseline we needed to get to. But there were nuances that we didn't expect and that our customers were able to give us feedback on. And that helped us really fill in that last remaining gap between like, oh, okay, this is something that's like pretty good and this is something that I would actually use.
Can you give an example of that? Or is it super technical? Or
This is like really stupid example, but like, so we have Merge Link, which is like the pop-up where someone authenticates. And our first version, Gil and I designed it and it was fine. Like it works, like it was usable. And our first customer, Drada, this guy, I love him, but he was like, this is kind of ugly. Can you make this better? And this is something it worked, right? Like it literally worked, but it was ugly. And it matters because it's appearing in all of our customers' products. And we were like, you're right, that is ugly. But it's the last 30% that like doesn't. He gave us feedback on that we didn't have to do. And it works, but we should do because it actually makes the customer want to use it. And so we did make it less ugly and now customers do use it.
There you go. That's a good story. Talk to me about the go-to-market side. Hiring is hard, building is hard, but it's kind of like doable hard, at least most of the time. Go-to-market is the thing that like sometimes just doesn't it all happens. Like how did you structure it in that like first year or so? Like how did you get your first few customers, for example?
It's just brute force outbound. Like you have to outbound. Like anyone who is too lazy to outbound, you're just not going to make it. Like that's just not, you just got to get over that. Like you have to be embarrassed. You have to do like all these like really awkward things. We just have to cold message and cold email and cold LinkedIn everyone to try to get them to take a chance for you. And I'm doing that still.
That was you? That was just you doing that?
Yes, just me doing it.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm still doing that to this day. Like is one of the things that like you as a founder can uniquely do. So just like man up and like do it. Like I hear all these like people who are like bitching about like, oh, like outbounding, but like it's your job. So you need to get over it. Like whether you're recruiting, whether you're doing sales, like whether you're like, trying to get a partnership, you have to be willing to outbound.
Like who was your first customer, for example? And how'd you land them?
We got Drada and it was from a LinkedIn message.
Cold. Maybe just tell me about the whole process. Like you go out, you cold outreach and they sign like right away sort of thing. Like it's a smooth process. Like how did that play out?
No. So I messaged Troy, the CEO of Drada. I was like, hey, like I saw you need HRIS integrations. Like we are blah, 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 whatever. You know, the pitch. And he was like, sure, send me an email. Like I'll like send you an intro to our CTO. And we book a meeting with the CTO and he's like, why would I use you guys? And we were like, because we're going to be better. And he was like, I just don't trust that. And we were like, no, we promise we're not. It was all vibes. It was a complete vibe check, which is fair because we had really nothing. Like we barely had a product. But yeah, he really was just like, if you guys die, we're screwed. So don't fuck this up. And then he was also like, don't screw me. Like I need high quality. I've already used another vendor that didn't work out. I need you to not screw me. And we were like, okay, we will not do that. We will not do that. And they didn't pay us for the first 2 months because we wanted to prove ourselves to them. We wanted to show them we would do whatever they wanted and we would really make sure that they were happy. We also signed on, I think, two other customers at the same time. And we did the same exact thing for them too. So before we signed our first contract with them, we just showed them that we would do whatever they needed and we would be the best team. We would have the best product and that we would be reliable.
Like you had just 3 customers for 2 months and you just kind of rolled in them until you figured like the product was like at the right level.
Exactly. Because like, yeah, the first few months when they signed on, it was chaos. Like nothing works. So you have to get through that period.
When you're talking to a company like these, do they already have integrations? How do they think about bringing you on? Do they replace the other ones? Do they keep them but use you for new ones? Like what's the kind of story?
It's actually both and. So sometimes they'll have like 1 or 2 integrations and they're just like, oh my God, this sucks. Like we need someone else to handle the rest and they'll end up using us. And sometimes it's like we have existing integrations. We don't even want to deal with them anymore. Please take over all of them. And then sometimes it's like we're launching a new product. We don't have anything. Like we want to just move fast and we'll use you. So, and it can also be a combination of all of them. But we've definitely seen all of them and whatever someone decides to do like long term, if they decide like, okay, like, you know, we want to bring some of them in-house, we'll help you out too. Our goal is just to be the best partner.
And like how many integrations did you have back then? How do you choose what to integrate into?
Oh, we had like 10 and all of them were from me signing up for like random shit. Like I would just like, I signed up for like an Australian HR provider that had a free trial. I would just try to get like free trials everywhere. So if there was like a 1 week trial, I would sign up for it and we get API access. If there was like a free trial somewhere else, I'd use that. I used our own accounts like so that we could test and build it out too. I try to ask our lawyer to see if they could get us a sandbox. Like we really did everything we could. I used like this guy I knew from like college who I hadn't talked to like 8 years to get in contact with the board of a company that then got me in contact with the CEO, got me then in contact with the partnerships team. It was really whatever we could to get access to those first few. But yeah, it was very painful.
Like how do you manage that? Because that's your value, right? Like if you go to a customer and you have 10 integrations and it's not the ones they want, it's kind of useless, right? Like how did you manage that Venn diagram of the integrations you could get and the ones that actually those 3 customers especially needed?
I mean, there's no way to manage it. You just have to like bust your ass, try to get as much access as possible.
Did you ask them like, hey, which ones do you need? And then you'd go back and kind of get those?
No, I knew what they needed. They needed everything we didn't have. So it just didn't matter. Like I just needed to get access to anything. It's like cyclical. We needed enough traction on the customer front to get access to more API providers, and the more API providers would get us more customers. And that's exactly what happened.
When do you feel like the product is like working? Like what timeline is this now?
It's around April 2021. We start having fewer issues. The customer is like happier. We're feeling more confident, like outbounding companies and having them like, see the product and like try it out. Like, and they're not running into huge issues. They're not like officially signed customers, but they're like starting to try it out. And we're feeling like, okay, we're feeling a lot of pressure. Like, okay, it's like time to go. And then we launch self-serve. So anyone can self-serve sign up, and we start blasting ourselves on LinkedIn. And I start outbounding, like purely focusing on outbounding, taking sales calls from like 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and just trying to get as many customers on the platform as possible.
It was all outbound, or did you run like top of funnel marketing, stuff like that as well in those early days?
No, I didn't know that shit. I didn't know any of that. It was all outbound. It was all outbound.
And remind me, just so I understand the timeline, when did you raise like your Series A?
We raised our Series A around mid 2021. I think it was probably like end of 2021.
End of 2020. So like 6 months after this April, like things are working.
Yes, exactly.
What did growth look like? I guess I'm curious to see like the pull. Okay, the product is working. Let's go out and just like make it happen. And then, end of 2021, was it like everything you dreamed for? Was it like much slower than you wanted? You know what I mean? Like, how did things go?
I mean, it went really well, but I will caveat that it was 2021.
Yeah, right.
So it was not like a normal fundraising process. Like I think we finished in like a week. So it was not normal, but it did go much faster than I expected. And yeah, we grew really, really fast, and we were getting a lot of traction.
This is the 1 week you're saying like the Series A raise took a week?
Yeah. Okay. This is a controversial take, but I'll say it. I think you should not collect revenue and not onboard customers until you know that you are going to get $1 million of revenue as quickly as possible. So yes, we had our first few customers like onboarded. They weren't paying us, but we also actively weren't trying to collect that money because I knew we didn't have enough pipeline for us to hit $1 million really quickly. And it's very stupid, and it's a very like vanity metric, but it is important. Like you want to be able to show momentum, and the team feels that momentum too. And so we didn't actually try to charge them and get that money until we were like, okay, we have.
Oh, so you kept onboarding customers, getting them to use it, whatever, and it was just kind of free for now.
Exactly.
When did you turn on revenue? Was it after the Series A?
No, it was after the seed.
After the seed. Okay. So somewhere in between that time when you felt like you had enough, you're like, okay, now you can kind of pay.
Exactly. And I feel like a lot of companies don't use stealth enough. Like they immediately try to just come out of the gate, like immediately collecting revenue and immediately trying to get feedback. But having customers is a burden in some way. And you need to realize that you're not going to be building like towards a bigger vision if you're getting pings from like, again, Joe at like 9 p.m., right? So you want to use that stealth to like collect customers in a controlled way so that once you're out, you can immediately get to $1 million or whatever metric that you're looking for as quickly as possible.
How fast did you get to $1 million from the time that you turned things on?
I think it was like 7 months.
So then you can say 0 to $1 million in 7 months. Like you can do all that stuff. You can show the charts, and then the fundraising becomes easier, and it's just like builds the momentum that you need.
Startups are all about momentum. Like it made it easier for us to hire people. It made it easier for us to get like other customers. It made it easier for us to like post stuff on LinkedIn.
Talk to me a bit more about go-to-market. Like, I'm curious on the tactics side. Like, you did the outbound stuff, just like demos. What did you figure out between then and now? What sort of tactics started to really work? Or is it just ramping up outbound and just now it's instead of just you doing outbound, you got however many people doing outbound, and like that's really all it is?
You have to do a ton of outbound. I think there's no way around it. And there's also no excuses. Like there's so many AI agents. Like back then, what I did, I hired a college student as like our intern for the summer, and he sent outbounds as me. I was basically just like, here's like the list of criteria, go through Crunchbase, find these companies and outbound as me. And then as they would respond, I booked the meetings with them. My goal was to make sure my calendar was completely booked every single day so that I could practice, my co-founder could practice, and then we'd be able to generate pipelines for moving people through the funnel. But now there's AI agents.
Do you remember some of your ratios back then, like no shows or SQL to close or demo to close, like things like that?
No, I don't.
No idea?
No idea. So we were not sophisticated. It was all blood, sweat, and tears. And like my co-founder and I, we still think like to get to 10 million, you just have to work really hard. That's really it. It sucks. And it's like a lot of paid, but you can just work your way to 10 million.
What does it take to go from 10 to 100, do you think?
scale. Then you need a really good team. You need people making really good decisions. You need to move to enterprise. It's a very different type of company. It's all about the leadership team then. You can't, as like the founders, just like will your way to get to there. And we really did. Like we really willed our way to get to 10 million, which was really exciting. But to get past there, it's a completely different process.
When did you start spending like real money on like top of funnel marketing? Like that's always the question, right? Like, should we invest in brand now? Should we do performance now? Should we do marketing? Should we just go sales? Like when did you kind of start transitioning towards that?
It's a really great question. I think it was when we got our first real VP marketing around like a year and a half ago. We were spending some money on like SEO and paid ads, but it wasn't like very advanced and it was very light, just like light experimentation. But when we got our real VP marketing, we spent a lot more on it. Like events became super important. We started doing a little bit of out of home and we started doing podcast advertising. Top of funnel just became way more important. And also it's very easy to lose a lot of money on marketing. And so you do need to have someone with some experience and you also want to have someone who's interested in measuring that. And prior to that, we just were not advanced enough to do that.
One of the things with integrations, like it's funny, obviously every company I invest in has to do integrations. And yet I find, obviously not every company is using Merge, but also not every company is using some sort of integration provider. Like a lot of them are still doing integrations themselves.
Yeah.
Why is that? When customers say no to you, besides you don't have the integrations I need, which that's obvious, but if you do, like why is anybody still building their own integrations?
I think there's a couple of different reasons. If it's a very, very simple integration, then it might just be faster to build in-house. And if you only need one, then you probably don't need an expensive provider, right? Like you can just try to hack it together. You might not need that much maintenance because it's very simple. But if you're starting to need to build the second, third, fourth, and fifth within a category, and it's starting to take a toll on your team and it starts becoming more complicated, there's going to be more maintenance. Like you're going to run into more edge cases. Your customer support team is going to have more questions. It's at scale where it starts to become an issue. And that's when you need something like Merge. In addition, I mean, there's also categories we don't support. So if there's integrations that we don't support, you kind of have no choice, which really sucks, right? Like I wish we could solve this for everyone, but there are certain categories that are very niche or very industry specific where we just don't solve it. And so you're forced to build in-house. There also is kind of like an old school pride in it. Like there have been some situations where we've talked to companies where they're like, no, like our founder believes in like we build this in-house. Like we can be uniquely good at it. And obviously I'm biased, but that is just fundamentally not true. There's no one who is that much better at like their cloud provider. Like everyone just uses AWS. Like why would you buy and maintain your servers in-house? Like if you're going to use AWS or GCP, like it just doesn't really make sense. But again, there's a chasm for us to cross. We're crossing it. Like we're making moves. Like, you know, we closed like the top big, like one of the top AI companies, like top consulting firms, but there is a chasm for us to cross and we're getting there, but we're still very much trying to convince the industry that this is the new way to go.
Is there anything about like the depth of integration where people might think like, oh, you know, but we want to do this and that and like they won't support it? Or is that just like not a real thing?
Sure, there are some nuanced use cases, but like if you're a big enough company or if you're a company that's doing a use case that we see, we'll build it. Like we're very open, like our API is continuously changing and there's also workarounds too. So for instance, like if there's an endpoint that is specific to like NetSuite and no other accounting company has it, but you really need that for like IBM that's like about to become a customer of yours, you can still do that through Merge and we're still handling 99% of the work. But I think a lot of people have this perception that like it's super rigid, that you can't like get access to data outside of our common data models. And it's just really not true. And so, yeah, that's something that we always try to like highlight in demos. We try to understand the use case and our sales team is very technical. And so they can really try to understand like, okay, what are the gaps? Like, is this a product thing that's on our end? Or is this like something that you could just do with our product pretty easily? Or is this something that like might not even be possible? Because we've also noticed that a few times too, where someone will come to us like wanting a magical use case that we've seen many companies try to do and fail at, and we'll just try to help you in that way.
Let's stop it there and let me ask the last kind of 3 questions that we always end on. The first one is, when did you feel like you had true product market fit?
I felt like it after we hit 1 million.
The second one is, was there any time during the last 5 years where you thought things might like just not work out and like the company might fail?
Yes. So when we were early on, we lost a really big deal to a competitor that had copied us. And it was a big logo. And that company ended up using that logo for every single bake-off. And it really hurt us. That was very, very painful for us. So I think that was a time where we were like, okay, this might not work out.
Why'd you lose it? To price or something else?
Just, you know, if they were earlier, they used some like investor connections. We got them back. They're a customer now. So,
there you go.
Yeah,
there
like
you go.
don't fuck with Shensi. Like we get them back, but it really hurt us in the beginning. And again, all those little details matter in the beginning.
And the last question is, if you had like a piece of advice for an early stage founder, what might that be?
You just really need to be willing to work a lot. I know that's something that some people just don't acknowledge or think is going to be true, but you're going to have to make a lot of sacrifices and you're also going to just have to deal with people not liking you. And it's something you have to deal with. I mean, if you're not willing to do either of those things, then it's just not going to work out.
How hard did you work or do you work? Like, what are your days like?
So I do 9 to 9. I'm in the office, and after I'll like hang out with my husband maybe for like an hour, and then I'll like code again and like check my Slack. Weekends, like I'm definitely online. Some weekends I'm working a lot more. Some weekends work a little bit less. There are times where I can tell my decision making is not as good, and that's when I need to de-stress a little bit. But then some weekends I'm like, okay, there's just too much to do. I need to work a lot. So this upcoming weekend I'm going to be working the whole time.
Has that changed over the last 5 years, or it's just been like constant?
It does go in ebbs and flows. There are certain times where the company needs you more. Actually, Zach Prey from Plaid, he said this to a founder dinner. He was like, there are times where it's a little bit less busy and you're going to be alarmed. Like, why is it not that busy? And I have had that. I'm like, whoa, what's going on? And then it gets really busy again. So whenever there are those times, you just need to be like, okay, it's one of those, but it always comes back. And now I've seen that like, several times now. So I'm like, okay, whenever it is a little bit less busy because my team's fully ramped or we just hired a bunch of people, like, and then everyone's trained, like, I just need to kind of get used to it because then something's going to totally ruin my life in the next week. So I have to enjoy it.
Perfect. Well, we'll stop it there. Thanks so much for sharing your story with us. It's been great.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you for having me again.
Wow, what an episode. You're probably in awe. You're in absolute shock. You're like, that helped me so much. So guess what? Now it's your turn to help someone else. Share the episode in the WhatsApp group you have with founders. Share it on that Slack channel. Send it to your founder friends and help them out. Trust me, they will love you for it.